Well, I am with my friend Jonathan Anderson. He is a missionary in Mexico. Been there for the last 12 years. God's been good. Jonathan, almost all of your kids were born in Mexico. I think 4 of the 5, you said your son was only, 8 months when he left? And so they all grew up there. So let's talk, if we could today, raising your family on the mission field. Maybe we talk about the home. Maybe we talk about, and obviously in that, you helped your kids maybe to adapt to Mexico instead of this is not home. Your kids. I mean, I've been with your kids. Everything from playing soccer with their friends in the neighborhood in the park to being with their friends at church. They love it there. And that could be something that naturally came. I think, obviously, God used you and your wife to help your kids. And sometimes that's difficult, how can I help my kids get involved or learn the language? And sometimes we stress as parents over that. So let's start that way, and then let's go into general, just the home and helping and loving our family, leading them right. And so maybe you can start right there with you got to Mexico. You only have one son at the moment. And then over time, you have your other children. How did you involve them in church? How did you involve them in culture? How did you help them not think that their home was back, north of them in the United States, but right where God had you?
Sure thing. What a blessing it is to be here with you guys today. For those that are listening, those that are watching, it is a blessing to serve the Lord. And, there's something special about being able to have your family alongside you when you do that. And, for our family, we really looked at it that way, like this is going to be a lot of fun. We get to serve the Lord together. And so we've always tried to push that mentality in our home that this is fun and this is a blessing. And so I believe that you as the leader of your home, you have a lot to do with that. And if you're not careful, your attitudes, your negative attitudes can definitely take your children in the wrong direction, your wife in the wrong direction for that matter. And so I believe that, as we are, taking our family over to a whole new country, new food, new culture, everything, our children honestly grew up because they were so young. We didn't really need them to adapt a whole lot, but it was more like we want them to see the mission field, see Mexico in a good light. So even though there are bad things that happen, negative things that happen, things that maybe are not as fun, I mean, there's like speed bumps every stinking 30 seconds. But, so you obviously could complain about a lot of different things, but to be able to give them the positive, I think is so important. And, little things like we talk up tacos. I mean, I think they're pretty awesome. I don't know if they are that awesome, but we talk them up. Like we are always telling our children, we're going to get tacos. Man, we're going to have people come to visit us. They're going to get to try the real tacos, and we make them.
They are pretty awesome, I may say. I think I visited like 4 days and went to 8 restaurants eating taco and food trucks as well. You got good ones, yeah.
They're pretty good. And so to be able to invite people into our world and into what we are doing, that helps our children to be able to say, yeah, you guys come and see what we're doing and see what we get to enjoy. And that really encourages our children. So, I catch Victor talking to people in mission teams that come down, they'll come down and Victor's like, yeah, we're going to go to this taco place. We're going to take you over here too. And we're going over here to this church. And you're going to get to meet these people. And,
nice.
And he, so I think it has a lot to do with you as a mom and dad to be able to encourage your children to see that side of it. And not let the devil get in there, because he obviously would love to do that in your children's lives. So, yeah, I think for us it was just a matter of being positive, talking about different things that would encourage our children that way, keeping them involved. Victor and Ryan both, our 2 boys, they've mentioned several times to me about wanting to preach and teach, and Victor's gotten up a few times and given messages now, and he's excited about that. Good. And hey, Dad, I've got no sermon. Dad, I've got no. Ryan's telling me, hey, Dad, I'm studying this sermon. Will you help me study this sermon? And it's not that we've been pushed it on them. They just watch me day in and day out, week in and week out, do the ministry, be excited about it, and not go home and turn off from it and say, okay, that's over with. But to honestly have that desire and that heart 24/7 to love people, to minister to people. and it really does end up affecting your children.
Yeah. I remember a couple different times, Jonathan, probably several, but I specifically have in my mind two different pictures that you've texted me at different times and said, hey, I'm here with Victor, taking him out for his birthday. We're out at lunch. I remember one other time, I don't know if it was Emma or if it was Skyla, and you sent me a picture and said, we're out on a date. And I think that's so important, little bitty things. What are some of the things that you do with the kids? Maybe your wife and you, or maybe just you as dad. Maybe some special things, maybe some everyday things. What are some things that you do with the kids to help them?
Sure. What we'll do is we have a family day, so we take off every Tuesday. I was talking to a pastor friend the other day, and he said, I'm just so busy, got a lot going on. And I said, I hear you. I said, there's always something to do. There's always something pulling us towards getting something done. And I said, but you think about it this way. I said, we're training up families and helping families to understand what a Christian family looks like. And I said, so when we take that day off on Tuesday, for us, we actually are very bold about it. We're like, hey, Tuesday's our day off. We're going to be doing something as a family. And so if somebody texts us, they're like, hey, just hate to bother you today. I know you're off today, but wanted to just mention this to you. And so it's actually giving them that example of, hey, you have to slow down. You have to take time for your family. You have to make sure your family's important. And we do the same thing with our marriage, take my wife on a date every week and things like that. And our children watch all that. They if you put your wife and your children on your schedule, then they realize they're important.
Yeah.
And I think, some of us are scared to say, I'm going to put my wife on my schedule. I mean, that's my work schedule. But honestly, whatever is important to me goes on my schedule at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think I read one book said one of the best things you could do for your children is to love their mom, your wife. And praise the Lord, your relationship, mom and dad, those that are listening, the relationship you have in your marriage, it's kids notice a lot more than we think, right? They've got a lot bigger ears, per se, than we think they do. They can feel the tense, situation or whatever. They know if we're arguing. Now, don't do that in front of them. Take it a back room, a disagreement, but they know those different things, and you do need a strong relationship. Jonathan, what are some of the other ways that maybe you've helped them feel like they belong in the ministry or in life, in your every day-to-day in and out?
Sure. One of the things we'll do is we don't try to separate the ministry from our family. We try to do it as a family. And so there are times where I'm going to be going to a class and, my wife is staying back with the kids, but a lot of times I'll say, hey, Victor, Ryan, come with me. Let's go do this together. Let's go set up the chairs and get them involved that way, because you want them to feel as though they are becoming part of the ministry. So we definitely do that. Our children, I'll take the children out. We'll go soul winning together, and we'll just hand out invitations together and take a selfie together and make it exciting, and then finish and go get an ice cream. And, so all of those kind of things make your children feel like they're part of what you're doing. I think it's important for your wife to feel that she's important and part of what you're doing. She needs to find her place and all that God's doing with your family and the ministry. It's not just your ministry, and she's kind of hanging out on the side.
That's good.
So that's something she needs to feel part of it. She needs to feel like she is part of what you're doing, and so she's not just hanging out on the side supporting your ministry, but she is doing it with you.
And allow me to say, ministry is like eating a bowl of rice. You try to get a lot knocked out, and it seems like the rice is all there. You're like, did I even make any dent in this? And so if we don't stop and make time for our family, if we don't stop and there'll always be something to do. Yeah. That will always consume your time. If you don't wrap it up and finish, and I realize there's, circumstances that someone calls, and I know all that, but if we don't make time for our kids now, they might not make time for us later. And, time just gets away from us so quickly. And realize that, as Jonathan said, put it on the calendar, put it on the schedule. Say, I'm not a calendar guy, or, I'm not asking you, send your wife a calendar invite, you might not, depending on your personality. Nevertheless, in your mind or on your to-do list or something, make time for your wife, make time for your family, because time goes by. Take it from my third daughter's about to get married, and take it from a gray-headed fella who would be like, Lord have mercy, I blinked and they're grown up, where did it go? Take time for your family. And a lot of my beautiful memories, and we're still making them. We still got kids at home, but I remember different things that we did, and I thank God that we did them, because if not, all I would have was a memory of time's gone and they're grown up. Make time. I remember one of the activities that kind of went into our schedule, Jonathan, is every day. This was probably on our second term. Every day in our schedule, I would go off. I'd preach at the radio from 8 to 9 a.m. I'd get there early. I'd study. I'd read my Bible on my motorcycle. I'd preach from 8 to 9. I'd leave from there. I'd go to a coffee shop. I'd get my double espresso with cream, and I would stay there. I'd study a little while. I would go do some visits. At noon, I would go and I would eat lunch. And I would say, by the way, everybody needs to have at least one meal a day with your family. There's something about eating that Jesus did with his disciples, that we do fellowship at church. There's something about eating and friends, right? Mm-hmm. And so ours was lunch. It wasn't supper. It was lunch. And it wasn't even breakfast, but whatever works for you. But lunch, I would go home and we would eat, and then we'd all go out on a walk. And my wife and I will go out on a walk. We'd walk with the kids. It let my wife, she'd been up in the house with the kids all day. She needed to get out. She needed to talk to me. And if I was staying at home with my computer on my lap or my phone in my hand, I'd be distracted and I wouldn't listen. So I need to get out. It helped exercise. It helped us to get out. Kids need to run around. And then after lunch, we'd have another hour, and then I would leave. I'd go back to the coffee shop, another double espresso with cream and, croissant. And then I would go to Bible college for the evening. And that was our routine. That routine gave us time together.
Yes.
And so what were some of the routines maybe that y'all used, and maybe we'll give ideas to our friends that they have to figure those routines of meals or fun times with the family?
Sure, yeah, and and we're here talking to our missionary friends and people, and I they're in the work, doing the work. I think one of the things you have to do is you have to set your limits, because like Jeff's saying, he wasn't working from sun up to sundown. He took a break in the middle at least. And I think that's important, because, if we're not careful as missionaries, we wake up, we turn on, we got to be, doing the work. And then we just are always busy throughout the day. And then here we come home at night, 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night sometimes. And our wife's just like, I don't even know you anymore. You have no clue who I am. And so, being able to break it down some, not just a day off like we do on Tuesdays, but to be able to say, like you said, come home for lunch, and your wife's looking forward to that. She's fixing it, and she's waiting for you to come home, and it's important to her. It's important to the kids. It's important to you. And so, we do that, and I think that's important, because if you don't break your day down, you don't break your week down, you're going to find yourself in a bad place where you are, your wife is saying, you don't know what's going on with me. You've not heard me out. The children have stuff going on. I know what's going on with the kids. They're going through stuff. You have no clue about it. Yeah. And so being able to just bring it all together, keep that family unit close, I think is such a huge thing. And that's, whether it be you take your children out for their birthdays when that comes up, or just having a time where you just see one of your children struggling, frustrated with something, and you're able to lean into that with them, take them out and talk to them some. These are just things that you must do.
Yeah. Amen. Make time for your family, right? We need time to rest. We need time to, even God made time to rest, right? And he's a God who never sleeps nor slumbers. Yet he probably wasn't doing that he needed the rest. He's showing us a pattern, right? And we need that rest. Let's not be silly and think, and that would even be with our family. And by the way, those that are listening, friends that are listening, make time, especially at night. Go to bed the same time as your spouse. That's a good thing. Put your kids down. And I realize not every night, you might be away. I understand that. But pray with your kids before you go to bed, or tuck them in, have them in your room, jump on the bed and pray with them. You need something steady in their life so they could say, growing up, this is what we did, and those are important things. Those are the foundational things. Time's going to go by quick. Make sure we do things that they remember, things that are worthy investments. Well, I appreciate your time today, Jonathan. God bless you greatly, you and your sweet family. And thank you, friends, for listening, for watching. I pray that God blesses you. Make time a priority. We could all say God, family, and we could all put that, but we don't all live by that. And may that be our life, not just You know, it's easier to preach 10 sermons than it is to live one sermon, right?
Yes. Yes.
We could all preach though, like, well, I would say, you know, and it sounds good, and you got the poem at the end. Nevertheless, are we living that?
Amen.
Right? And so may our mouth and our feet be pointing in the same direction. So thank you, Jonathan, for speaking about the family, the importance of the home. And thank you, friends, for listening, watching. God bless you greatly. Amen.